All right, please stand. Arise, y'all. Take out your Christmas novenas. Also mask up, please. Ladies without masks, please remedy this situation immediately. Gentlemen, ditto. Okay. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Angela. Yeah. Hail and blessed in the hour and moment in which the Son of God was born in the most pure Virgin Mary, at midnight in Bethlehem, in piercing cold. In that hour, vouchsafe, O my God, to hear my prayer and grant my desires, through the merits of our Savior, Jesus Christ, and of his blessed Mother. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Have a seat.
Bella, I had you move your arm. No, I couldn't see that. I mean, you move your arm so it won't happen.
We are continuing notes from yesterday, if memory serves. Take out the notes.
12.
What's that?
I said 19, but I meant 12.
Susie, question.
I have the rest of 12.
From yesterday? Okay, cool. I need to put in this too. By the way, I'm recording, let me see.
Turn around.
Okay, do you have the link to the YouTube channel?
Forever.
I sent it in a previous email,
It
but
said turn around.
I can send it again. Okay. Okay. So just for fun, I'll just put it on the chat as well. I have it open in the
Yeah, it's always going to be. Oh, it does rainbow. What? Yeah, I'll tell you. We did not have that.
Ta-da. So if you need a bookmark, there you go. All right, fish run, please. Notebooks out. And at the ready, let's see what we can do here. Let's erase the stuff from yesterday. We were talking about getting radicals out of the basement. And we were talking about something called a hostage situation. Now, the violence aside, there is a technique. I would like to introduce a word. Howdy. I'm glad you could join us. We're just starting. We're starting on the notes. So, for example, I'd like you to put 2 columns in your notes. One for numbers, and one for this new word.
Conjugation.
Very close. Conjugate. Okay, can you see that, or is it still blurry? Anatole? C-O-N-J-U-G-A-T. Let me try this. Is that better?
Communicate what it says, then I'll read it.
Okay. Actually, I forgot. I need to scoot this thing forward. Does that help?
Yeah.
Sort of, kind of? Okay. So, 2 columns. A number and its conjugate. What on earth does conjugate mean? Well, a conjugate means you switch the sign of the radical. A conjugate is where you switch the sign of the radical. If the sign in front of the radical is positive, you switch it to negative. If it's negative, you switch it to positive. Okay, let me try a few. For example, and this usually works when you have double numbers like this. 2 plus radical 3. If you start with 2 plus radical 3, can anybody take a stab at what the conjugate might be? So, exactly. 2 minus radical 3. It's not too hard to do. You just have to know which one to change. How about this? Radical 7 plus 10. Can somebody give me the conjugate? It's a little sort of a curveball-y thing. Regular.
Negative radical 7 plus.
Got it. Negative radical 7 plus 10. Don't change the sign of the 10. change the sign of the radical. Does that make sense? I'm going to try a really horrendous one. 2 over 3 minus radical 5 over 7. Give me the conjugate, somebody. Also friendly reminder, not chin straps, but masks. Go.
2 over 3
Uh-huh.
plus radical 5 over?
Exactly. Whatever term has the radical in it, you change the sign of that thing. That's really all you do for a conjugate. Does that make sense? So if you know what a conjugate is, then you can do this next thing that I'm going to have you do. Namely, hostage situation. Rescuing hostages without, well, rescuing innocent hostages without killing innocent people. Hint, hint,
Some
clue.
might not be innocent.
So let's try, people at home, do you have this?
No.
Okay. Got it? Okay. I need the space. Let's try another quote-unquote hostage rescue. Example. What's a good one? 10 over 3, no, sorry. 4 minus radical 3. 10 over 4 minus radical 3.
Wait, can I give you an answer?
Well, first of all, gentlemen, I need you focusing up here.
Okay.
Please. Okay, and by the way, now down, please. So what do you do? Can I just leave it this way? That is.
You can transform each radical, wait, no, radical section.
Say again, I'm sorry?
You can transform each radical section.
Yeah. Now we'll get there in just a second. Can I just leave it like this? Just final answer? Susie, why not?
Because it's radical and basic.
Yeah, you cannot allow radical to be in the basement. Gentlemen, I'd hate to have to rearrange seating, but I think you can try and self-control, yeah. Yeah, the radical here can't be in the basement forever. It's got to move up to the top. How do you get a radical out of a basement normally, Max?
You would add, add those.
Not add.
Wait, subtract.
Yeah, subtract. Jonah.
Multiply?
Multiply, top and bottom, by radical 2, radical 3. There's only one catch though. There is a hostage along for the ride. So how do you cure that? Athens, take over.
You turn the radical 4 to radical 16.
You turn 4 into radical 16. At least be aware that radical 4 is really, now I'm saying it, that 4 is equal to radical 16. You don't have to write it that way. Just be aware that this thing is a radical, i.e. you can target it for death, quote unquote, without any problems of conscience. So let's try it. How do you get rid of it? Normally I just do radical 3, but it's not quite that easy. It's not too hard, but what do you do on top and bottom? Who's feeling brave or reckless? Susie, go.
Multiply by radical 3 and radical 16.
Okay. And what is radical 16 really?
4.
You can leave it as 4 if you want, and there's one tiny difference. Yeah, sorry.
You do the conjugate.
The conjugate. So instead of 4 minus radical 3, it's what?
Plus.
4 plus radical 3. The cure for a hostage situation, go ahead and write this down. You multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the bottom, the denominator. Okay. Question?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is it too hard to read? Okay. This is hostage. And how do you get rid of a hostage like this? How do you handle a hostage situation? You multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. So what I'm saying is this 4 minus radical 3 has a conjugate, I'm just going to abbreviate CONJ, conjugate of 4 plus radical 3. Multiply that on top and bottom, and we're, oh, hardy R. Was that a joke, Mikey? Or is that true? Can you change seats? She's playing with my mind. Okay, like, no, I'm sorry, there's a seating chart where you're, of course you can. That's a brain trip. So tell me how to do this. Can somebody do the top for me? Go.
Actually, I really don't know why I said that.
This times this.
40
Yes? Plus
plus
what?
radical 3.
Close.
10 radical.
Yes, the 10 is going to distribute. 40 plus 10 radical 3. My suggestion to you in problems like this is that, oh, I see what I'm doing. When I have lots and lots of black on, it makes the camera go all fuzzy and try to compensate for it. Hopefully this will be a little bit better. Whatever. Divided by, what I recommend, put parentheses around everything. Does anybody see what we might have to do on the bottom? Let me see. Oh. How do you multiply this to this? What's that? Boil, exactly. Let's boil this thing. Do it. Multiply the first. 16. How about the outer? Plus 4 radical 3. Keep going. Yep. Yep. And one more. What's radical 3 times radical 3? Yeah. Well, it's negative, you're right. It's negative something. Negative radical 9. What is that radical? Yeah, it's 3. Radical 3 times radical 3 is 3, and positive times negative makes negative. Is that right, Christopher? Susie, take over.
Well, 4 radical 3 and negative 4 radical 3 cancel.
Correct. They cancel completely. And I have some like terms here.
16 minus 3 is 13.
13. So the final thing is 40 plus 10 radical 3 over 13. If you'll notice, no more radical in the basement. We're almost done. I would just like you to, I'm not sure if the book mentions this, but I'd like you to simplify. You might say, is it possible to simplify this? Not much. Let me show you what I mean. This is an old rule. There's an old rule. If you have x plus 2 over 5, it's the same as x over 5 plus 2 over 5. Dividing the entire thing by 5 is the same thing as dividing each one by 5, and so on. Does that make sense? Question? All right. Okay, yeah, later.
So wouldn't it be 40 over 13?
Yes, split it out. 40 over 13?
Plus 10 radical 3 over 13.
Yes. Do either of these reduce?
No.
No, but at least that's not our fault. That's your answer. And often they do. Because you remember, if I had done this, I'm just going to try and squeeze it. Let me see where you can see this. I'll try and write it here. If I had had x plus 7 over 14, everybody look up here for a second. Tell me if this is good or bad. 7 and 14 reduced to 1 and 2. Yeah. Bad. Why?
Because the addition sign.
The addition sign does not allow you to cancel like that. Addition sign. But if you split it apart, x over 14 plus 7 over 14, now you can reduce that other half, the half on the right hand side. That reduces to 1 over 2. Does that make sense? Here, I can scroll so you can see. There. Does that make sense? X, it was x plus 7 over 14. You cannot cancel the 7 and the 14 because of plus sign. But if you split it up into x over 14 plus 7 over 14, then you can reduce. Make sense? All right. Let me sit back over here. Let me take a look at what they need in the homework. It's looking relatively good. Yes, I will try actually only one or two more problems, and then I think you have the rest of the hour to work. Yes?
Couldn't we have done that in our previous chapter?
What do you mean?
Like, split them up and then simplify them even more?
You, maybe. I wasn't making a big fuss of it last chapter because you had enough to worry about. But yes, yeah, that always works. So let's see if we can try this. This is a different type of problem. See if we can do this. There are at least two. This is radical 28 over radical 7. There are at least two ways to do this problem, and I will say that one of the ways is much faster. Right. How?
By dividing both sides by radical 7.
Yeah. By the way, what's a radical times a radical? Radical. What do you think a radical divided by a radical is? Same thing. Because multiply and divide are the same sort of thing. One's going forward, backward. Same rule. Radical divided by a radical is a radical. So what's radical 28 divided by radical 7? Guess what that is?
2.
You're done.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Some people do this. They say, hey, there's a perfect square here. Radical 4, radical 7 over radical 7. So this reduces to 2 radical 7 over radical 7, which is true. And these cancel, and you get 2, but it takes longer. Either way is fine. But if you can just divide the numbers ahead of time, and they work nicely, by all means do it. That's perfectly legal. Like it.
What if, like, do you want us to do the bottom one if it doesn't?
Oh, that's a good point. I've seen a third way to do this. I've seen people get the radical out of the basement. Now that gets a little scary. So 28 times 7, I don't know what that is. 4998, 196. So radical 196 over,
7.
yeah, radical 49. This turns to 7. They may happen to know 196 is a perfect square.
It's 14.
It's 14. Now that's hard to see, and you will get the right answer. But it's a little more intense, and you do not have to do that. Now, could you do it? Absolutely. Getting a radical out of the basement is always a good idea. But I don't care when you get the radical out of the basement, as long as you get it out of the basement by the end of the problem. If it's easier to get the radical out of the basement at the end, go for it. If it's easier at the beginning, go for it. Yeah.
Oh, really what I meant was like, what if it was radical 3 divided by radical 7?
Oh, okay. So radical 3 over radical 7?
No, radical 30.
30 divided by radical 7?
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that reduce?
I don't think so.
No, it does not. Because the 7 doesn't go into 30. Now, since they don't reduce, are there any perfect squares in 30?
16, no.
No, correct. Like 30 is nice and big and it's got a 0, so people think, wow, there must be a perfect square in there. There isn't. 40 would have had one, 90 would have had one, but 30 doesn't. So if there's no perfect squares to pull out and it doesn't divide evenly, there's only one thing to do. Radical in the basement. Get rid of it. Radical 7 on top and bottom. So you get radical 210 over 7. And that's all you can do. You're stuck. Of course, you're also done, which is good. Make sense?
Yeah, reduce.
I will show you one last thing, just so you're not unprepared. They might try to hide the problem on you. They might try to do this. Is there a radical in the basement? It doesn't look like it, but what? What is it?
Radical
Yeah, it's radical 11 over. Now fix it. Go ahead and do it, as long as we're at it. How do you fix this?
You multiply by radical 3 on both sides.
Yep. What do you get when you're done?
Radical 33 over 3.
And that's it? Can I reduce the 3 and the 33?
No.
No. Tell me why not. Go. Right. One's a radical, one's not. You can't cross breed, so to speak, if you. I grew up on a farm, sorry. But these won't cross cancel because one's a radical and one's not. This is your final answer. Making sense? Yeah.
If it were like 24, radical 24 over 3, would we have to like simplify that with perfect squares?
What I would do is reduce it first. You could actually go down to radical 8. You do need to find the perfect squares, but it'll be a lot easier here. Yeah, a lot less to mess with. That'll be like radical 4, radical 2. So you'll finally get 2 radical 2. Yeah. Questions? Everybody okay? Alrighty. Your homework is 12F as in fluffernutters. I expect a new one. So it's page 501, thereabouts. We just did 12E, correct? So 12F, let me type that in the chat. So homework number 12F will be due tomorrow, i.e. Thursday. So look on the homework schedule, and that is all I have for you. So people at home, you can probably disconnect at this point, unless you have questions for me. In which case, well, you can just email me too. Okay, yeah, Sophie, question. 12F, it was going to be, but we pulled it, we ran late yesterday. 12E, let me see. Hold it a little closer to the screen. Yeah, thank you. And then raise it up just a little bit. Okay. Is there any other pages on that, or are you good?
That's it.
Okay. There you got it. Thank you much. All right. Mary Kay, any questions? Say again? I just lost your video feed there. But, okay, everybody else, go ahead and get started. You actually have a holy. This is, that's insane.
We are 55 minutes.
Study hall is gonna start a half hour from now. So you have like a half hour class time to work on math. And then you have 25 minutes to work on whatever.
We're pretty bored.
Okay.
I just said that.
Ah, thank you.
Mr. Kaufman, it's still going. The camera.